The Tennis Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Head to Cut.com, that's KUTT.com. Use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app at bets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. And don't forget to enter our Super Bowl 58 props contest. Pick 58 Super Bowl props for a chance to win $1,000. Enter today for free at sportsgamepodcast.com/SB58 or in the SGPN app. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, roughly 2 a.m. Eastern Time on February 10th. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. And it should be a fun episode because we have 6 matches to talk about. It is semifinal time in Cordoba, in Dallas, and Marseille. Cordoba did their thing. The weather cooperated, so they officially got back on schedule. And as a result, we will include them in this episode after skipping all the action from Cordoba on Friday. Now, before we get into any of the actual picks for the semifinals of those 3 tournaments, do you want to take care of some housekeeping? Starting off with a reminder, don't forget to like and subscribe if you are listening to this on YouTube. If you're new, welcome to the show. Hopefully you enjoy it. And if you're still listening to this on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, then don't forget to rate and review the podcast on either platform. Also, a reminder, we have merch now on the podcast with the SGPN merch store. So if you do want to get a t-shirt supporting the show, a mug, etc., you know where to find all that. You can find that on the SGPN merch store. But we got to also get into the recap from the last episode, and we're going to start off with the lock and dog picks. We crushed it, simply put. Ended up sweeping the lock and dog picks. For the lock, we had the over 22.5 games in the Shelton and Thompson match at minus 144. I said I thought 23 flat would be fine. I kind of just played it safe for no reason. 22.5, 23, 32.5, didn't matter. I went over as the match went to 3 sets. Very competitive match like I thought it would be. Shelton got the job done, but most importantly, the over was never in doubt as that cashed easily. For the dog, kind of the same story. We ended up sticking with Dallas, did go with Tommy Paul to win in straight sets against Koepfer, and he won in straight sets at plus 110. First set was a bit dicey as he won the first set 7-5, but he was up a break on 2 separate occasions in that set and choked it away and then got it back again to win the set, and then he coasted in the second set. Pretty straightforward. Both guys are baseliners. Paul's better at it, and he dominated. So overall, we ended up going 2-0 with those picks. For the leans on the other matches, I think we did fine for the quarterfinals. Looking at the matches from yesterday, I mentioned Cordoba last because we didn't really talk about that tournament at all in the last episode. We thought Paul would win in straight sets. He did. Thought Shelton would probably win in 3 or a very competitive 2, and he did. We were wrong about Tiafoe. I mean, Tiafoe's a clown, so not exactly shocked that he ended up underachieving. It's why we ended up skipping him for the outrights going into this event, because Tiafoe will never get my hard-earned money in outrights because he is just an absolute head case, and Giron killed him on a Friday night. And Mannarino won in a set and a half as Duckworth hurt his hip in, I believe it was the 3rd game of the first set. Tried to tough it out, and he got killed, but ended up having to retire midway through the second set. The draw for Mannarino, by the way, has been absolutely hilarious for this event, and it's pretty funny because out of the 4 remaining players in Dallas, we have 3 of them on the outrights. So we have a very good chance of actually winning. As long as Giron does not run the table, we will win an outright automatically. But you're looking at Mannarino's path so far. He had a bye in the first round. Nishioka withdrew, so that was a walkover. And then you ended up seeing his opponent, Duckworth, get injured 3 games into a match. So Mannarino's basically played 3 games or 2 games against a healthy opponent all tournament long, and he's in the semifinals, which I find kind of funny. It's good for us, so we'll see what happens moving forward. As for Marseille, we have 1 outright left. We didn't give out many, and during the tournament, we picked the favorite in Hurkacz, who dominated once again as he beat Makic 6-3, 6-4. Humbert buried Fokina, which I did not see coming. I thought that was going to be a close match. I thought Humbert was definitely going to benefit from the home crowd to some degree, but I thought that Fokina was in good form, and maybe I was a bit biased because Humbert struggled early on against Gaston or in the first round and then kind of, found his groove after that. But Humbert was great. Just simply put, Fokina knows a head case as well, and he looked very sharp against Rusevori, and then pulled a 180 and got buried in the following match. As for The other matches, we thought Kashanov would win against Zhang, probably in straight sets. That happened as he won comfortably. And we thought Dimitrov would win, probably in straight sets, but a competitive one against Rinderknech, and he did as he won 6-3, 7-6. So you ended up having one match out of those two tournaments go to 3 sets in the last 2 days combined. So relatively lopsided matches individually in those two tournaments, but you saw a lot of interesting matches in Cordoba because they were making up for some lost time. So Hanfmann and Borichaga ended up finishing their match that got rained out on, I think that was Thursday, I believe. But either way, the point is they finished that match out. Hanfmann came back and won in 3. Baez had a bit of a sweat there, started off slow against Delian, but then responded well as he ended up winning in 3. You saw Diaz Acosta ended up winning in 3 against Tarante. Corey ended up beating Echeverry comfortably. That was a dominant showing there as he won 6-3, 6-4. Bagnus ended up beating Munar 7-5, 6-4. Once again, I thought Munar would potentially, not Munar, I thought Bagnus would potentially make a decent run in this event because he was very good in qualifying and he does have a home country advantage. The problem was for the outright episode, Bagnus did not have any odds, which still annoys me, so we could not give him out, and I kind of wish I waited and potentially found a way to give him out because I thought Bagnus would potentially make a Cinderella run into the semis, but he won in straight sets. You saw Darderi make his first ever quarterfinal first ever semi, in the ATP main draw as he ended up beating Hanfmann in straight sets and ended up seeing Baez kill Diaz Acosta in the final match of the day as Baez ended up winning 6-3, 6-1. So overall, I mentioned before the tournament that Cordoba is usually very unpredictable, and that's why it's one of my favorite clay events of the year. It's kind of ironic because you might have a rematch of last year's final. If Coria and Baez both win their matches on Saturday, then the unpredictability angle that I was talking about is just dead wrong. And you ended up seeing exact carbon copy of the final we got last year. So we'll see what happens. Should be interesting, though, as you basically have two Cinderellas in Bagnus and in Darderi, and you have Coria and you have Baez. So that means Darderi is the only non-Argentine who's actually in the semis. So the home country angle did work out, but I picked the wrong guys. Either way, so the Cordoba outrights didn't really work out at all. Dallas did. We have 3 out of the 4 remaining. And Marseille, we have Hurkacz, who is still the favorite to win the tournament. So the quarterfinals kind of went according to plan. We swept the show picks for the lock and dog, so can't complain. So we're going to talk about the actual semifinal matches in Marseille first, going in chronological order, actually. Marseille is going to be the first as that's taking place in the morning. Then in a plot twist, Dallas is actually starting before Cordoba. So we're going to go with Marseille, then Dallas, then Cordoba as the actual order of operations here for this episode. But before we get into any of those actual matches and the previews, do want to take a quick word from our sponsor. Looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58? DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. You can currently find the Super Bowl lines available on DraftKings. The Chiefs are +2 and the Niners are -2. The over-under is set at 47.5. Should be a fun game, and hopefully you make some money betting on it with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code SGP. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58 with code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-97777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to plug inside your favorite fantasy players all season long. NFL, NBA, NHL, college basketball, and college football. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite fantasy players' fantasy stats and cash in. You can win 100 times your money with some spicy plays. Watch along, maybe make a little money and make some picks over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. When you sign up, remember to use the promo code SGPN. Underdog will double your spots up to $100. Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing, or recapping, I should say, the quarterfinal matches in Cordoba, in Dallas, and in Marseille. Now it's time to talk about the actual matches taking place on Saturday. As we're going to start off in Marseille, and we're going to look at what should be a pretty solid set of semifinal matches. To go through the matches in order, you have Hurkacz, defending champion, taking on the home country guy in Humbert, as you have Hurkacz being a favorite of minus 199. Humbert is around plus 169. For the game spread, you have Hurkacz a minus 2.5 games, a minus 104. As for Humbert, plus 2.5 games is minus 116. The over-under set at 24.5, kind of an unusual number, at minus 111. And you have the under at minus 109. If you want the set wager, you can find the match to go to 3 sets at around plus 120, give or take. Hurkacz to win in straight sets available at plus 160. Humbert to win a set is minus 200. And if you want Humbert to win in straight sets, you can find that at plus 325. Now, Hurkacz has been incredible so far in this event, as he ended up burying Shevchenko and he ended up burying Makic in the match yesterday. So he's in great form. Now, Humbert's been in good form, too, ever since he stumbled out of the blocks against Gaston and then woke up afterwards in what would turn out to be a fun match, but he beat Fekina comfortably in the match on Friday. The head-to-head, though, has been interesting between these two because Hurkacz is currently 3-0, but the matches have been competitive recently. So they faced off in the Australian Open in this past year, and Hurkacz lost the first set and ended up winning in 4. They faced off in Basel last year, and Hurkacz won that one in 3 with a final set tiebreak being the decider. And you saw Hurkacz win on grass in Halle back in 2022, where Hurkacz won 7-6, 6-3. So Hurkacz, I think, is going to win this match. I think that he's the better player. I think that Humbert, despite winning the first 2 matches, hasn't exactly had to face off against many great servers, with Fekina, who's known to double fault and to be kind of a clown at times as well. And you're also looking at Gaston, who's very undersized, and because of that, is really a bad server, especially on hard court. So Hurkacz's serve should really dominate throughout the course of this match. Humbert's a good server too, especially the lefty kick out wide. But I do think you're looking at Hurkacz being the better player and being in great form. He won the title here last year. We know he's comfortable with it. And I think that Humbert can make this interesting. He's been really good for the last couple months at this point, as Humbert might flirt with top 15, top 10 upside if he keeps this rolling for the next year or so. So keep an eye out for that. But the point is, I do think Hurkacz is the better player. He's 3-0 in the head-to-head. Would it shock me if Humbert won a set? No. But I do think that the actual value might be on Hurkacz straight sets here at around plus, sorry, forgot what the odds were, on plus, just trying to find it, 160. I think 160 is a pretty good price to get the defending champion, who's been really, really good, especially in the return game. Which is kind of surprising, is Hurkacz I've compared in the past to being the new age Kevin Anderson, which I think there's some resemblance because they're good servers. Usually the return game isn't amazing, which is why Hurkacz had so many tiebreakers last year. But on this actual court, he's been really good with the returning. He was able to threaten constantly as Makic is a good server, and Shevchenko almost got bageled in the first set of their match. So I think that Hurkacz will find some chances. I think Humbert will create some chances as well, but not as many in the return games. So I like Hurkacz to remain undefeated against Humbert, and I think that there's some value on these straight sets here at plus 160. I like the game spread, though. You can find Hurkacz minus 1 game at minus 145. It's juicy. I still like it, though. I think he'll get the job done. So give me the defending champion to remain alive and to move into the final here for the second straight year. Moving on to the other semifinal, you have what should be the match of the day, even though this one is probably a runner-up. You have Dimitrov taking on Khachanov. Now, Dimitrov's a pretty decent favorite here of about minus 219. Khachanov is around plus 189 the other way. As of the game spread, Dimitrov minus 3 is minus 106. Hurkacz plus 3 is minus 114. You're looking at the over-under for games. 22.5 is at minus 130. On the over, the under is plus 100. You can find the 23 flat at minus 106 on the over, and the under is at minus 114. If you want the set wager, you can find Khachanov to win in straight sets is available at plus 375. Dimitrov to win in straight sets is plus 140. Khachanov to win a set is minus 170. Now, the head-to-head is pretty lopsided. Similarly to the Hurkacz and Humbert match, where you have one guy winning all 3 matches in the head-to-head. But some of those matches were competitive as they faced off in Vienna in 2020. Dimitrov won in straight sets 7-6, 6-3. Faced off in Paris in 2021. Dimitrov won in 3 sets. And they faced off in Shanghai last year. Competitive. Dimitrov won 7-6, 6-4. Now, Dimitrov's been good. He has had a couple of close calls, though. Went to a tiebreak against Korda. Went to a tiebreak against Rinderknech. So he's been dominant in some sets, and he's been vulnerable in others. Khachanov's been on the warpath, though. He absolutely destroyed Batista Agut in the first match, 6-2, 6-2, and then killed Zhang, who was in great form, as Zhang was off of a straight set win against Felix, and we know that he thrives in hard court indoors, and yet Zhang killed him. And he had no chance in the match on Friday. Khachanov went up a break relatively early in the first set, and then he ended up coasting. And then he killed Zhang 6-1 in the second set. So the point is, I do think even though Dimitrov has the head-to-head advantage, which might explain this price point, I think this line's too high. Khachanov's been really good, simply put. I know that Agut's past his prime. I know that Makic has kind of had a recent surge, and I do think that was a very impressive win. Actually, or am I confusing opponent? Sorry, I mean Zhang. Zhang was in pretty good form in this event after he beat Felix in the previous round, and Khachanov beat him like it was nothing. So I think that Khachanov in great form. And once again, the only loss he's had in the last month or so was in the Australian Open to the eventual champion in Sinner. No shame in that. So I think Khachanov actually pretty live to win this. Now, do I think he's going to? Probably not. I think Dimitrov probably gets it done. 219 is crazy, though. This line should be closer, in my opinion, to minus 160. I think Khachanov's really played well enough to have Dimitrov on the ropes in this match. So I like the games in favor of the dog here. I like the over at 22.5 games. I see what should be a close match. I see what I think is going to be a bit of a toss-up, in my opinion. So if you want to go for the value play, blindly, I don't mind the money line price for Khachanov at plus 189 if you want to take a flyer and you want to go for what could be a very nice plus money play. But I think the 3 games is pretty generous, and I do think that there's a decent shot Khachanov wins a set in this match, which is why it is minus 170 for him to win a set. But I think that based on current form, Dimitrov's been good, but I've seen him play better in other actual venues, and the fact that he went to a breaker against Korda and against Rinderknech suggests the over is definitely worth a look. Khachanov, though, has been in great form, and I do think that his overall style of play has translated to the courts here in Marseille. Give me the dog here plus the 3, and I am going to go with the over in the spot at 22.5 at about minus 130. Now, moving on to Dallas, you have 2 matches, one between Americans and one between an American and a Frenchman. You have Shelton taking on Paul, and that should be a very fun match, as Shelton is a slight favorite, about minus 123. Paul's around plus 103. As for the game spread, Shelton minus a half is minus 113. Paul plus a half is minus 107. As for the over-under, 23.5, the over is minus 108. The under is minus 112. If you want to go for 22.5, you can find the over at minus 160. The under is plus 130. For set wagering, Shelton to win in straight sets is plus 210. Paul to win in straight sets is plus 240. Now, both guys have looked good so far in this event. Now, Shelton had a bit of a war against Thompson on Friday. Not surprising, because I thought Thompson's game could give Shelton some problems. But you're looking at the head-to-head, and Paul won the first meeting in the Australian Open back last year, and then Shelton got revenge twice. Beat him in the U.S. Open in 4, and beat Paul in Tokyo last year in straight sets. Now, the issue with Paul has always been the serve, and that was an issue at the end of the first set against Kempfer. But you're looking at Shelton, the serve's been really good. Now, you have to ask, though, for the sake of asking, does the current form of Paul mean anything? Because he's won in straight sets against Daniel and against Kempfer. I don't think it really matters that much, because Shelton brings the unique element of an elite serve to the table. Kind of like my breakdown of the Hurkacz match against Humbert, where Humbert was in good form, but when you face off against Gaston, you face off against Fekina, suddenly you're facing off against a guy who's one of the best servers on tour, and your return game might be a little bit neutralized. And I do think that Shelton's serve is going to dictate the match. Now, Paul, I think, will have some break points. He might break a time or two. I think it's going to be a close match. But I do think if Shelton, who's still very young, is not dealing with that much fatigue from the war he had against Thompson, I think he's going to win this match. I think Shelton's the better player. I think Paul is a guy who can only win one way. He has to basically try to outlast opponents on the baseline, which could work for Paul, But Shelton is a pretty good volleyer. He's a great server. I would not be surprised to see him attack the net a lot in this tournament, moving forward, and in this match in particular, because that has worked out for him so far in this event. So I'm going to go with Shelton. The fact he's won the last 2 meetings pretty convincingly, and the fact that, once again, Paul just doesn't have a good enough serve, in my opinion, to go back and forth holding with Shelton. I think Shelton will get more break points. I think eventually he'll break through in each set. Give me Shelton to get the job done on the money line here at about minus 123. Moving on to the other semifinal matchup. You have a matchup between Giron, surprise semifinalist here, and Manarino, and you basically a pick 'em for both guys, as each player is minus 110, and the over-under games is set at 22.5. Now, for the sake of the head-to-head, it's been interesting between these two players because Giron and Manarino have had a couple of interesting matchups where Manarino won the first 2 meetings in 2014. Then you had a 7-year gap, and they faced off in Melbourne in 2021, and Giron won in straight sets. So not really anything you could point to in the head-to-head because neither guys faced off against each other in basically 2-3 years. So the point is it doesn't really mean much at all for the sake of this matchup. Giron, though, has been in good form. Ended up beating Moreno, relative unknown, in straight sets, beat Purcell in straight sets, and killed Tiafoe on Friday. Manarino, I mentioned it before, has played basically 2 or 3 games against a healthy opponent all tournament long because Nishioka didn't show up. He had a bye in the first round, and Duckworth got injured immediately in the quarters. So, yeah, Manarino's here because he seems to always do well in 250, especially for the last couple of years. But he really has barely had to do anything in this actual tournament so far. So Manarino should be very rested. You can argue borderline rusty at this point. I'm kind of being facetious. But I do think that Manarino's the better player in this matchup, and I do think that, of course, he's one of the more difficult players to prepare for on the entire tour because of how flat he hits the ball, the way he strings the racket, and just his overall style of play. I think it's going to be a fun match because Giron's in good form. I see a very close match. Might go 3 sets, so I actually might lean to the over. But I do think Manarino's going to get the job done. I just trust him more. The guy drinks tequila before matches. What do you want from me? No, but seriously, Manarino's been a friend of the podcast for about a year and change, where we've made a lot of money on him over the last year or so because we kind of saw the upswing and decided to tail it, and it's worked out very well for us. So I'm going to back the proven commodity here. Give me Manarino to get the job done. Won't be easy. I think Manarino in 3 might be an appealing option here. Maybe if you want to go with a lose first set win match for a crazy price, somewhere in the 6 to 7 to 1 range, maybe I wouldn't mind that. But I do think you're looking at Manarino probably finding a way, and I think that he'll get the job done. So give me the front of the podcast here. Give me Manarino on the money line at minus 110. Moving on to Cordoba. Now you're going to look at 2 decent favorites. One's a pretty big favorite. The other one is somewhat close, but you're looking at Coria being the favorite at minus 145 as he takes on Bagnus. Coria in the game spread here is minus 2 at minus 105. Bagnus plus 2 is minus 115. Over-under in games is set at 22 flat. The over is minus 112. The under is minus 108. If you want to go for the set wagering, Coria to win in straight sets is plus 180. Bagnus to win in straight sets is plus 275. Over 2.5 sets is available at plus 130. Now, Coria, once again, is the defending runner-up last year, who we had to win the event last year before he lost in 3 to Baez. Still hurts to this day. But going through the actual head-to-head, you've seen Bagnus actually kind of dominate the head-to-head. Bagnus is 3-1 in the head-to-head. Faced off, not really recently though. Faced off in 2014. Bagnus won in 3. In Cordoba. Faced off in Cordoba again in 2019. Bagnus won in straight sets. Faced off in Peru in 2019. Coria won in 3. First 2 sets were competitive, though, 7-5, 5-7. And they faced off in a challenger event in 2021, and Bagnus won that one in 3. So all 4 matches on clay, 2 of those matches in Cordoba, and Bagnus is 3-1 in the head-to-head. I recognize how good Coria has been in this event, but I got to take the dog here at plus 125. If you're 3-1 in the head-to-head and you're 2-0 in this exact event, yes, a long time ago. I'm aware of that. But the point is, Bagnus has been in great form since qualifying. I thought he would be a serious dark horse candidate to make a run here. And the only thing stopping me from taking him instead of Navone was the lack of odds for Bagnus. So I'm still annoyed at kind of myself and the odds makers for not giving me odds on Bagnus, who was in the field at that point. But I think Coria has been in great form. No doubt about it. Killed that Cheveri. But Bagnus has been really good. And I just think that when you own the head-to-head like that, I have to consider the plus money price on Magnus here. So I'm not going to pick the rematch of last year's final. I'm not going to do that. I do think there's value on the dog here, and I do like the over. I see a marathon match. You see 3 of the 4 meetings going to 3 sets. I like the over 2.5 sets here at plus 130. I like the value. Give me a fun matchup where the crowd might be split. I think you're going to see a slight favorite. Actually, I don't know if there's going to be a favoritism towards Corey or not, because he was the finalist last year, but Magnus has been around for a long time. So I am kind of wondering how the crowd will be divided. Probably 50-50, or just rooting for a good match and hoping either guy wins. But I think you're going to see Magnus keep this close. I'm going to lean to the underdog here, and I am going to go with the over 22. I like the over in sets here at plus 130. Give me a classic clay war that might take 3 hours. So that's kind of my prognosis for this actual match. Moving on to the other final, you have the other semi. You have another Argentine, as you have Baez at minus 213, taking on Dartery in his first ever ATP semi. You're looking at Baez, who is minus 3 at minus 113. Dartery's plus 3 at minus 107. You have the over-under at 22. The over is minus 113. The under is minus 107. As for the set wagering, Baez in straight sets is plus 125. Dartery to win a set is a minus 155, and the over 2.5 sets is at plus 135. Now, they faced off last year, coincidentally, in Cordoba, and you saw Baez win in straight sets. So Baez already beat him on this exact court, so I think you're going to see a similar story here. I can't go against Baez. He's the defending champion. He is the best clay player, as far as I'm concerned, in this field. Dartery, if you've actually watched him play, he's consistent, but I don't see many unique attributes to his game. And I think Baez, after a slow start against Delian, makes sense. He played one clay match in the Davis Cup, but really not much action post-Australia. So he was a bit rusty to start. Then he flipped the match on its head, and he won comfortably the last 2 sets. Then he killed Acosta Diaz. So I do think that Baez has figured it out again, and I think he's the better player by far in terms of talent on clay. Give me Baez to get the job done in straight sets. History to repeat itself. He beat this exact same guy on this exact same court last year in straight sets. I see a similar script here. Give me Baez to make it back to the final, and plus 125 for straight sets is a very good price in my opinion. So I am going to go with that as my pick. Now, that's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual semifinal picks in Marseille, in Dallas, and in Cordoba. We're going to get into the actual lock and dog picks in a second, but before we continue that, going to have a quick word from our sponsor. We're brought to you by the SGP Super Bowl 58 Props Contest. $1,000 winner-take-all prize, free to enter. Pick 58 props for Super Bowl 58. Enter today, sportsgamepodcast.com/SB58, or hit the link in the SGPN app. We're also brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Peer-to-peer social betting is the new and better way to bet. Bet directly against your friends or other users on sports, politics, pop culture, and other events with verifiable outcomes, and a ton of fun social features that give it the feel of a betting social network. Cut offers lower VIG and fully customizable odds so you can create your own bets. Cut handles the payment side of things, so you never have to worry about chasing down your money. Social features include group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, and more. And they have good rewards. Get cash back every single time you bet against your friends or other users. And our partners at Cut are giving away $5,000 to the user who refers the most new depositors by the end of the Super Bowl weekend. All you have to do is invite your friends to sign up for Cut via the Invite Friend button on your dashboard and have them deposit before Monday. The user with the most depositor referrals will get $5,000 in site credit automatically added to their accounts next week. Cut is the peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based, available in 40 states. Head to cut.com, it's KUTT.com, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Game Time. I don't know about all of you, but I personally love attending sporting events in person, and it used to be very annoying to actually find a ticketing provider that I could trust, but that changed once I found the Game Time app, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all these sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have a lot of great features in the app, including my favorite feature, which is the images of seat views, so I'm sure you've had this happen before. You buy a ticket, You're ready for the event you're about to watch, and then you suddenly realize there's an obstruction, a pole or something in front of you, and you realize that you spent money, your hard-earned money, on a sporting event that you can barely watch because your view's obstructed. That is not going to happen with this feature because it will show you a preview of the exact view you're going to get if you purchase that ticket. So you can definitely avoid those type of disaster situations before spending your hard-earned money on tickets. But they also have a lot of great last-minute ticket deals. Forget plenty of months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event, and exclusive flash deals for tickets on football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So snag tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, sports analytics platform parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets' revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet, or in which picks are hot, or which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app, visit HOFBets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping the quarterfinal matches, and then we ended up previewing the semifinal matches in Cordoba, Dallas, and Marseille for Saturday. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. A reminder, we are off of a sweep, so hopefully we'll get another sweep in this episode. But starting off with the lock, I am going to go to a matchup taking place in Marseille, going to be a matchup between Dimitrov and Khachanov, and I am going to go with the over 22.5 games here at minus 130. I understand that based on the head-to-head, it might be intimidating because Dimitrov is 3-0 lifetime against Khachanov, but I've really been impressed by how Karen's played in this event. He's looked fantastic. Dimitrov's looked good too, but Dimitrov's been a bit vulnerable. Went to a breaker once again against Korda and Rinderknecht each of the last two head-to-head meetings. Despite it being 3-0 in favor of Dimitrov, each of the last two had at least 23 games. The meeting last year ended 7-6, 6-4. The meeting before that went to 3 sets. So the matches have been close. Dimitrov's just been on the right side of them. But I think you're going to see a close match once again. Dimitrov has variety. Khachanov's forehand and really backhand have been consistent, and the serve's been very good. Dimitrov's only... Dimitrov has been involved in a lot of tiebreakers recently, which I feel is kind of an underrated fact. You're looking at Dimitrov, and he's had at least one breaker in 5 of his last 6 matches, including each of the 2 matches here. So if you're expecting Dimitrov to have a long set or 2 in this match, that obviously bodes well for the over. But Khachanov serve's been a pretty underrated storyline of this event so far because Khachanov has not gone broken yet in this tournament. In fact, he's only faced 1 break point. So Khachanov, if he continues serving this well, I think should go to at least 1 breaker, maybe 2 in this match. But I think you're going to see 2 guys arguably... they're relatively similar in terms of skill set. I think that Dimitrov's a bit more versatile, but I do think that each guy is going to try to stand by on the baseline, kind of rip it. Dimitrov's going to slice a bit more, as he has been doing with the backhand side especially. Maybe a little bit of volleying for Dimitrov, but the point is I do think you're going to see a close match. Based on the current form, the good form of Khachanov, give me the over 22.5 games in what might be a 3-set match at minus 130. And for the dog, I wanted to go to Cordoba, and I wasn't sure if I was going to initially go with a set spread or if I was going to look at the Bagnus match, because I thought about Bagnus on the money line at plus 125 since he has won 3 of the 4 head-to-head meetings. They're a bit dated though, so I don't know if I could actually use that much for the sake of that match breakdown. I thought about the over as well in 2.5 sets at plus 130, but I decided to go with the actual defending champion instead. Well, so once again, honorable mention for the dog was the over 2.5 sets in the Coria and Bagnus match, but my dog, is going to be on Baez to win in straight sets at plus 125. Simply put, Baez is the proven commodity here at Cordoba. He's got the crowd support. He is the defending champion. And he also beat Dardery, this exact opponent, this exact same event last year in straight sets. So I've seen this movie before. And Dardery, it's a very, very big match for him because this is his first ever ATP semifinal match. I believe he's only won 4 career main draw matches on the ATP level. So he's still very young. I believe he's 21. But looking at his actual style of play and looking at his attributes, I think he's a pretty generic clay player. And I think that, once again, Baez, based on the form and the overall talent disparity, keyword should, win in straight sets. But if you want to give me a guy who is a massive favorite in this match at about minus, what's his price again? I got to find it. He's around minus 213, and I can get him at straight sets as the defending champion at plus 125. I think it's a great deal. Baez woke up against Dillian after the first set, which he lost. Then he had a very nice, basically a bye in the quarters against Diaz-Acosta, who was off of a 3-set marathon against Tarante, who had nothing left in the tank, and Baez coasted. So the point is, I do like Baez in the spot. I wonder if emotions will play a factor negatively for Dartery, who's in the biggest match of his career, against a home country guy with crowd support who's the defending champion. I think it's a bad spot for Dartery, but I just simply think Baez is the more talented player on clay, and I think it's going to show in the spot. Give me Baez in straight sets at plus 125 as my dog. So once again, my picks for the show. The lock is going to be in Marseille. I'm going to go with Dimitrov and Khachanov over. Khachanov over 22.5 games at minus 130. And I am going to go with the dog being Baez to win in straight sets at plus 125. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. A reminder, back once again on either Saturday night or early Sunday morning to go through the final in Cordoba, Dallas, and Marseille. A reminder, though, before we officially wrap up the show, to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're still listening to this on Spotify or Apple, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and a review. Been slacking on reviews lately and on ratings. So once again, I'm not calling out anybody in particular, but I do know that we have a couple hundred people that actually listen to the podcast via Spotify and Apple individually. So leave a like and leave a rating and review. Takes like 5 seconds. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. But until tomorrow and until the actual matches conclude for the semis, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.